Okay, so this is how we calculate our HDI. So in this video, I'm going to show you this, and then I'll make another video in my other program where I show you how to calculate it. And I'll do it by hand, but then I'm also going to include an Excel file that someone could use to do this calculation. Okay, so it's take the cube root of these three things. So each we have our GDP, our log of our gross national income, we have our life expectancy, we have our education index. And notice this I, each one of them has an I. The I stands for index. So that's why we call it an index of indexes. Okay, and so I need to these indexes are a little complicated, but I'll go through it because it has the logic of what they're trying to capture is included in the math. So that's why it's worth going through the math. I'm not going to require that you calculate this by hand because it's really easy to make mistakes. And also it ends up being a little inaccurate because of rounding off throughout the problem. But I still want to show you one time so you get an idea of where this is coming from and how the logic is embedded in it. Okay, and so then remember our education index has two parts. The two parts are we have our expected years of schooling for children, and we have our mean years of schooling for adults. And again, we have an index for each one of those. Okay, so I'll come back in another video and I'll go ahead and do the calculation for that. All right, so before I go to do the calculation video, I just want to walk you through the three different indexes that are included in this. Okay, so the first thing is about income. So income, we're comparing this to we're calling this like a min and this like a max. So this is the country, that's their income, and then we'll say how far away it is from as low as it could be, and then we also and then we're dividing by the range from the max to the min. Okay, so they use 100. Once they set it the first time, then they have to sort of keep it consistent, because if they keep changing it, then they'll run into problems that their index won't make sense. It won't be comparable between different time periods. Right? So they said, well, at the time when they were starting, the lowest country, no country was below 100. So 100 was kind of like a theoretical minimum. There wasn't an actual minimum. It's not, and they don't change this every year as the lowest country changes. But it's kind of like a theoretical minimum. And then 75,000 was the number they came up with for that. Well, beyond 75,000, maybe we don't really care if the country gets higher income. Right, that was the sort of the idea. And so if the GNI per capita is over 75,000, they just give them 1. Otherwise, this will be between 0 and 1. So as long as it's above 100, it'll be above 0. And then if it hits 75, it'll go to 1. If it goes above 75, they don't bother calculating it. They just give it a 1. Okay, so that's this. It shows and it gives you an idea of like what percentage of the total that you could, that kind of is the goal, what percentage do you have? Okay. The next one is life expectancy. It's the same kind of structure. This is kind of a min, and that's based on and then we kind of have like a max. Although it's funny, the max, some countries, at the time they said it, they thought this was kind of a max, but now some countries are approaching this max, and I'm probably going to go beyond it. So they'll either have to adjust this in the future, or they'll have to do what they do with the GNI of basically just saying, well, once you hit 85, you're good enough. And the min comes, I believe, from like historical data of countries, even when there was basically no access to healthcare or anything else, countries didn't go below this level. So they compare their life expectancy, how far above the minimum it is, and then they compare that to how far could it be if it was at its maximum. That's the idea there. The education one is a little complicated, although I think it'll make more sense when we actually do the calculation. So it has two parts, and then they find an average of these, a geometric average of these two. So what are these two parts? So the expected years of schooling is compared to 18. It's compared to 18 years. So again, that's compared to the average person the average child is going to get 2 years of college. So they're going to get at least some kind of specialized training. And if it goes above 18, they just give you a 1, and they say good enough. Okay, that's basically what that means. If they're above 18, they give a 1, and it's called good enough. And then the mean years of schooling, that's again based on the past. Well, no country went above 15, so they can just use 15. So they compare you to 15. So right, they're comparing you to the maximum was pretty close to 15, and they just compare you to that. So this is the idea of what they are doing with these three parts. It'll probably make a little more sense when I actually walk through a calculation of this.